From the Lean Enterprise Institute in Boston, this is the WLEI Podcast, where we share stories of people making the world better through lean thinking and practice. For more information about LEI, including how we can help you apply lean thinking, please visit lean.org.
Welcome to the Management Brief. This month, we are exploring the role of continuous improvement groups in lean thinking and practice. Today, Josh Howell and I are joined by Rich Calvaruso, Senior Director for GE Appliances. Rich has been an instrumental part of GE Appliances' journey in the past decade and a half to successfully transfer appliance production from China to Louisville, Kentucky, and to build what is now the #1 appliance maker in the US. All of this has been accomplished through lean thinking and practice. Hi, Rich.
Hello. How are you guys?
Great to have you with us. So I think we'll start out hearing a little bit about you, Rich. If you could introduce yourself and provide an overview of your work, career, and experience with lean.
Okay, great. As Mark said, my name's Rich Calvaruso. I'm the Senior Director for Lean here at GE Appliances, headquartered in Louisville, Kentucky. This is my 36th year of working in manufacturing.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And so I basically worked in consumer products type businesses my whole career. I started out in GE Lighting, and then I moved over to GE Appliances. And I've held about every role you can kind of hold within a manufacturing plant, including plant manager and different other staff level roles in those regards. I started my lean learning 2006, really, is kind of when I started. So I guess a little bit ago, almost 20 years. And I learned my first thing I did is I went to Japan, and I went to a week-long learning with that was hosted by Shingizitsu. And it's kind of in a factory, and I started to learn some basic things. And then I kind of just over the years learned a lot of my learning is by doing. So I basically tried to participate in as many things as I could to learn the skills, to learn the tools, and kind of progressed over the years. But I started out probably the lone guy at GE Appliances that was doing this type of work, and we've built a team since then. And it's every day is a new experience. Like I kind of probably learn something every day, and I think that's the kind of probably the most intriguing thing about being in this space is that there's no you never really arrive at like some destination. It's kind of constant learning, constant improvement, constant challenges.
Well, I think that's a really good summary. And I guess that's what continuous improvement is all about. So I think not only have you had a very interesting personal journey, Rich, but important part of the journey you just explained was that GE Appliances in the past 15 years has become a leading brand in the appliance business. Maybe you could share a little bit about the GE Appliance lean journey, starting with the introduction to lean, its decision to move the appliance work back to the US, but also applying lean to build its capability.
Yeah, so this business started their first kind of lean activity, I think it was maybe late 2004, 2005, and it was really centered around one plant. It was more event-based type lean activities. And so we did that for a few years, and I kind of got involved a little bit. And one of the things that all the coaches tell you is that you need to create some sort of model line. So we said, we should do that. We should make a model line. We should do it here in Louisville, Kentucky. We gave that a shot. We actually redid a complete dishwasher assembly line, and we got like really good results. Enough good results that we got the attention of like the CFO and the CEO, and they were kind of asking us, "How were you able to do that?" And I said, "Well, we use this thing called lean, and we were able to get some nice results." And it was in a time where this business had been in a source and sell kind of a model where we were using contract manufacturers to produce some of our products. This was early 2000s, so manufacturing was, I don't know, but it depended on who you listen to, kind of some people's like, oh, why are you in manufacturing? Like that stuff's dead, right? Well, I think as we evaluated our business model, it became apparent that in order to be relevant in the appliance market, you not only needed to design your stuff, you needed to make it. And our customer base mostly was in the US, so having long lead times, making stuff from far away was not the best solution, but we were always worried about cost. So we were able to kind of show that, hey, we think we could do this a little differently, save some cost, but build that capability to be a good manufacturer again. That's kind of how that happened, and we started that in earnest in 2009. And quite frankly, we thought what we did was good, but it wasn't really that good. But it was way better than what we were doing. So I think that helped. That was a catalyst, I guess.
So maybe let's further that story a little bit. What happened after that relative to production here in the
Well,
US?
right after that, we had this decision to reshore the water heater, hybrid water heater business from a contract manufacturer. So we were making it by a third party in Asia. It was the first big announcement. We're going to build that in the U.S. here in Louisville, Kentucky. So we started a process to do that. And kind of about 2 years of planning, we launched that first plant. And it did not, go as great as you would want from a launch standpoint. But I think in retrospect, like I think it was about as good as we could have done, considering the fact that we had lost a lot of capability over the years in this space, right? So we were having to build that back. And it's not that easy just to, you could build a plant, you can bring the product back, but there's a lot more that goes into manufacturing than just the product and the building. So, you need all the aspects of it to work. So there was some definite learnings. I mean, I think Mark, I met you actually
Right.
during that launch, and it was a little
Remember that.
tough. We were struggling, trying to figure out how we're going to do this. We persevered through that, right? It was a little painful, but I think we were able to, eventually, we solved those problems that we didn't even know, we had at the going into that. So.
That's great. So you've been the leader of the lean group for a while now at GE Appliances. Maybe you can tell a little bit about some key moments in your learning journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple key moments for me launching all the reshoring stuff back in like 2012. That was humbling, I would say, because you really got the full appreciation for, this stuff's kind of harder than it looks, right? And so that was a key moment. It's really also the time when I became I met the LEI team, and you guys were gracious enough to provide us some coaching during the time. And I think for me, somebody like you got to think 2012. I've been at this for 6 years. I'm like, well, maybe I know something, but it was a bit of a humbling experience, right? And I basically was able to, I kind of had to start learning again, from a different perspective and I think that changed me in a good way. It was pretty stressful at the time, but I think that was a key moment. I think another key moment was, really like as we had been at this for a few years, we kind of had solved many of those problems, but we really still weren't as good as we should be kind of on the management system side of things. So I think we had developed good team leaders. We've had good processes as far as standardized work and problem solving. We still lacked the management system to kind of tie it together. And we kind of did some reflection, and that's where we realized we needed to develop our leaders more. And I think that was another key moment, like for us, as in our journey, and especially me particular, because I reflected on how I learned, and I learned by doing and by failing and by having somebody coach me. And really, honestly, as we kind of said, geez, none of our leaders really had to do it that way. And until they can kind of learn that way, I think we're going to struggle. And so we'll talk about that more, but I think that was a key moment for me as well.
So let's see. So I want to, I guess, dig in a little bit more to some of the stuff that you've talked about, Rich. You've already mentioned a couple of transition points, but maybe you could share a little bit more about those. So you began this reshoring activity in 2009. It sounds like around 2012 is when kind of the fuller commitment is made to reshoring. So you start bringing even more than that water heater back. And there's an approach that you guys are taking there at the beginning. You mentioned the utilization of like events and stuff like that. But I understand there were a couple of kind of PDCA moments where you were adjusting not just your approach to building your production capability on the shop floor, but also you've referenced the development of like your management system to support shop floor production. So can you talk a little bit about like kind of where you went from that events-based approach? You've talked about like standardized work and team leader. I believe kind of team leader training and development was maybe a next phase, and then that eventually led into some work with the development of good standardized work. And I don't know, could you kind of walk us through those, like, I guess, phases in?
Yeah, I think the event stuff is probably a necessary step for a lot of people and us too. But the problem with it is only a handful of people really learned with the event type thing, right? So I think that's kind of what the negative side of that is that if you really, really want to learn, you can learn. But events kind of just were a week long. They came and would go. So it didn't have the stickiness to it, right? To change the culture really. So when you go to launch, you realize like, holy cow, like a lot of people don't have a lot of capability here for this type of thinking. And that's going to make you struggle. So for us, it was about, let's get back to some basic things. Do we really have good standardized work? Do we really know how to improve the work? And we did all that on the floor under the guidance of some coaches, that the LEI team provided. And we really rethought our whole structure of how we did things. So we kind of got away from that event-based type activity. And we really started to focus on developing people's capability while getting results. Like we try to do them together. It was kind of the point. We had plenty of opportunity to get results, right? We had lots of problems. So we would just take a problem and try to solve it. But at the same time, we were trying to elevate people, lift them up, make them better. So I think that was a kind of a pivotal difference in thinking initially, right? And we were able to get quite a few people. I mean, some of the people that were on my team, that's how we developed them, right? Through that kind of work.
Yeah, well, so I guess then along that path, let's maybe zero in on the time when you're making this kind of commitment to the basics, really investing in building good standardized work, building capability across the production line, in particular with like team leaders in improving work and solving problems kind of one by one on the shop floor. What were some of the major obstacles that you guys encountered as you were embarking on that? Kind of was like a years long effort to develop good standardized work all throughout manufacturing.
Yeah, we basically redid our whole approach to how we created standardized work and actually how we taught people and developed them. So we did it all like on the shop floor under the guidance of some coaches, and we retooled the whole thing. The challenge always was interesting. It was like the feedback we'd always get from the team leaders, because that's what we were really focused on team leaders at this point, was this is great. When are you going to teach my boss, is what they used to say. And kind of remember that, like sticking with me. It's like they said, their ability to be successful is kind of limited by their leader, right? If their leader didn't really understand what they were trying to do with standardized work, then they were only so successful. So some of your folks that were just, real go-getters, they would stand out of the crowd. But the rest of them were being held back a little bit, I think, just because they were really ahead of the leader. We used to use that little cartoon of the person pulling the people up the hill. And we said, the problem is we left the leaders on the bottom of the hill. We didn't bring them with us. And I think that was kind of true. And I think that showed a lot during our initial kind of relaunching of production here in the US.
So what were some of the countermeasures, I guess, that you took to the fact that those team leaders were, or kind of higher level managers, I guess, had been left at the bottom of the hill? What did you end up doing like differently that addressed that gap, I guess?
It was interesting. Our CEO one day, we shared a lot of things that we learned from you guys. So there's like this Harvard Business Review article. It was about the NUMMI story. And we shared it with our CEO at the time. And he basically came back and said, well, how come we're not like these guys? We've been at Lean for a while and why don't we have this culture? And we said, well, that's a great question. That deserves some reflection. So we thought about that question for a while. And what we came back with is we need to put a program in place to develop leaders. And we developed this program called Immersion, and it was targeted at our senior leaders, plant managers and staff. And they had to go through it first. They couldn't delegate this down the organization. They couldn't say, I'm going to send somebody in my place. They were all required to go. And we took them off their job for like 4 weeks. And we had them do kind of individual learning with the coach. And they had to learn and improve on the floor. And they had to learn standardized work and problem solving and several things like that. And what I always said is there's no place to hide. When you do an event, Kaizen event, like you have 6, 7 people on a team, like 2 or 3 can do all the work, 3 or 4 can hide. It was just this one learner and one coach. So, and there was no place, nobody to go to. It was humbling for them. We made them experience the work of a team member on the line, created some empathy, but also they got to kind of see not only how the tool works, but like the whole social aspect of how you make change, right? Like it's not as easy as maybe people think. And you got to change the work. You've got to coordinate different groups to come over and make change. So it was very, very powerful and very rewarding for those folks. But ultimately, it changed their thinking. And I think once they went through it, they all started to lead differently. And I think that really became an important moment for us. That program still continues till today. We started that 2016, I think, is when we started Immersion. And
Wow.
it's evolved, right? Like we continuous improvement. We've improved it. We're kind of now at the frontline leaders is really who we're at right now. We kind of got the top and we had the team leaders. So now that frontline leader group is really who we focus on in the Immersion now. And that keeps the system strong. That's the way we feel.
So earlier you mentioned that maybe around that 2012 timeframe as the reshoring's happening, that you had by then had 6 or so years of experience yourself with like lean stuff. And yet you described that in 2012 there was required kind of relearning on your part with lean as you were like kind of approaching it maybe differently than you had up until then, as GE Appliances was approaching it differently than you had up until then. I'm curious, like, what was involved in you realizing the need for some relearning or to learning differently and maybe like changing your own mindset? And then how is the experience that you had maybe designed into or reflected in the immersion experience that you're providing to leaders today who are probably at similar places, like may also have the belief that I get this lean stuff, I've got however many years of experience, and yet you're wanting them to go through a learning experience that will expose them to even more about lean or will deepen their capability or perhaps even rewire kind of their thinking about lean. So anyway, I guess talk about your own conversion back in 2012, and then maybe how that's informed the experience that you provide to leaders today through immersion.
So we had all these forms, right? We had all these documents. Here's our standardized work. So it must be good, right? Well, then, one of the coaches basically told me like, this is terrible. Like this isn't standardized work. So think about that, right? I've been in that for a few years, like just met this person like maybe for 3, 4 months. And he basically said everything he did was like basically garbage. So it's like, oh, great. So we had like, you have two choices right there. You could either like throw that guy out, say, like, go get me another person, or you could kind of say, well, maybe they're trying to, maybe this is really trying to help me. And the way the approach was basically challenged me on the thinking behind standardized work. Like, what's the real essence of it? And was very Socratic in the approach, and to the point where, like, you wanted it to reach across the table and say, like, are you kidding me? Like, can you just quit asking me questions? But it was the right thing to do for me because it made me think. And then once I realized, oh my gosh, this is like a much, it's not just like filling out a form. This is a lot more to it. And it's really about, do you really understand the work, and do you really understand what the struggles are, and all the problems, and can you see that, and can you make improvements? So once I figured that out, I'm like, oh, now I got to reteach everybody. So I literally like immediately threw out all the training documents we had, and I said, and we started over. And I made a basically new training process for how we create standardized work, and I personally started to teach them the original ones. Under the guidance of my coach in the background. That's what we did. And then once I did a few times and I brought one of my coaches in, I'm like, okay, you got to learn how to do this. And so we started kind of just over. And, today it's kind of, you kind of look back and it's like, we take it for granted, like, because it's everywhere. It's everybody does it. Everybody knows how to do it. Back then, like we were like, you know, I barely knew what I was teaching, but I think that approach was good because it made me become much deeper thinker around that process by having to like learn it and then teach it because you can't just teach something you don't know. So that was humbling, but it was also super, super powerful. But we had to just think about it. I had to reteach every team leader, every person in the organization. So that took a minute, believe it or not, to get through all that. But we persevered through it.
So how would that sort of formative experience for you, how might I see that reflected in the design of the immersion experience you're providing?
Yeah, it was 100%. That experience helped me design immersion because I basically said, well, this is the way you learn this. This isn't like going in a classroom and listen to some PowerPoint slide or reading some book. Like you gotta go do it. So when we put immersion together, that personal experience really helped us um, build immersion, based on that experience. So it was super important part of that design.
Hey, yeah, I want to take a step back for a moment because we've gotten really good specifics around how you approach continuous improvement as you were setting up the operation. But let me step back for a moment, Rich, and ask you back to the kind of overall heading here was you're bringing manufacturing back to Louisville from China. And I was like you had mentioned, I remember in 2012, 2013, you had some major challenges just kind of getting product made for the customer. And now, where we are a little more than a decade later, you're the number one appliance maker in the United States. I understand the whole people development part, and I'm sure that was critical too. But what would you describe as like key, like milestones in being able to achieve what you've achieved over the last decade?
Well, you've got to, at the end of the day, you're a business, right? So you got to get results. You gotta be able to make good products. You got to be able to deliver them to your customer. So all the work we've done, that's really the litmus test, right? Did you do that? And when you can do that, you're going to get the opportunity to do more of that. So
Hmm.
I think we've, not everything we did was great. Not everything we did worked, right? I think there's never a story that doesn't have some setbacks, right? But I think we started to continue this like development of bringing products back, reshoring things, and we just can every time we did it, we try to get better. We try to get our costs right, we try to get our quality right, we try to get our lead times down, our delivery times. We are a U.S. manufacturer that supplies our product to the U.S. market. So for us, making products close to the customer is super important, right? Because shipping this stuff halfway around the world is tough, especially, customer demand changes. So our ability to make product what the customer wants here close to where they buy it was key. But it wasn't just reshoring, right? I think the LEI team, you guys like this term called lean shoring. And it's a good term because it's true. Like, right, you're not just bringing back what you lost. Okay, you have to do it differently. You have to think about it differently. One of the things we do is another podcast, probably all by itself, is lean product and process development. But the early ability of the lean group to be engaged with the product design and process design is crucial if you want to be successful. When you come in late, there's not much you can do. But if you can be involved early, we can make lots of good decisions. We can help design the flow of the factory. We can help improve the work. We can, and we have a better shot at being successful, right? So you can't just pick something up that was produced, on the other side of the world and plop it in a plant over here. You can do that, but I would venture to say you'll struggle being competitive. And I think you got to do it in a different sort of way, with different sort of thinking. That's where lean comes in. That's if you can use lean thinking when you bring stuff back, you're going to have a pretty good shot at being successful.
Very well said.
So in that story, there was also the transition, I guess, from GE Appliances being part of General Electric, part of GE, to its transfer to where you're now a part of a higher company. Could you talk a little bit about just that transition and what that meant for the work that you and your team were in the middle of, this lean transformation work, this work to build people's capability, to build manufacturing capability in a lean fashion? How did that
Yeah, so like maybe people probably think of GE Appliances, we are one of the legacy businesses of General Electric, right? Appliances was something, that was one of the original things GE did. So, we have a great heritage being a part of GE, but it became, this wasn't really the strategic business for General Electric Company at some point, right? They weren't pursuing consumer products as much, right? They were in the air, jet engines and other, power and some different aspects. And so, we knew that at some point we were going to get divested. And for us, getting acquired by Haier was actually like probably the best thing that could happen from somebody that would take us, right? It was good for GE, it was good for us. And why it was good for us is we were one little business within a big conglomerate of GE. They made appliances. And now we're part of the largest appliance manufacturer in the world that has hundreds of plants. So that kind of synergies really help you, right? Now, Haier's philosophy is zero distance to the customer. So our U.S. operation, supplying customers to the U.S., fit really nicely within that business philosophy that Haier had. But us lean guys, we just we stayed the course the whole time. We didn't let any of that distract us because we just knew that, like, we're in a appliance business. We have to continue to be competitive. We have to continue to be good at what we do. And we think lean's the best way to do that. So, when you get acquired by somebody, if you're at the most efficient producer and the best quality, you're going to probably continue that no matter who your parent is. So, to us, we just stayed the course and kept kept, we always say we kind of doubled down on it.
So there's going to be some people listening to this who might themselves kind of just be getting started, or perhaps they're at an inflection point where they've found some initial success, but they're wanting to take it to a broader swath of their organization or something. Based on your own experience, what would be some kind of key learnings or key points of advice that you might give to somebody who's early on, kind of just getting started, or again, early on in their effort to spread this capability broader across their organization?
First thing I tell them is have a lot of perseverance, because, that's required. Don't expect everything to be perfect and everything to go exactly as planned. It's going to be, there'll be some tough spots, but become a learner, learn as much as you can and do as much as you can. Like don't just be the, behind the, podium saying like, do this stuff. Like, go do it with them. If you really want to spread this, go find somebody who has a problem, a business problem, and partner up with them and try to solve it together. That's the best way to get people on board. If you help them solve a problem, they're going to kind of trust you and they're going to want more. If you just kind of say, hey, you should do this because I'm like the lean person and I think it's important, don't expect a lot of pull from that group. So create the pull by solving real problems. That's sort of like my philosophy. And I learned it from John Shook, I think, but I always ask everybody one question, and that is, what problem are you trying to solve? And I think I wear them out sometimes, but it's a great, great question to ask. And if you ask them that question, you say, okay, how can we help you solve that problem? And if you use this thinking in the process, you'll kind of bring them along with you. They might not even know they're coming. But at the end of the day, you can kind of look back and say, well, this is what we did. This is how we did that. We created some standardized work, and then we made the flow better, and then we solved some problems. And oh, okay, that's how that stuff works. Yeah, that's kind of called lean.
That's great.
And that's my philosophy. That's what I would tell people.
That's great advice.
That's great, Rich. So that transitions to maybe our next section we wanted to ask you about, which is really kind of the overall theme for this month, but the role of continuous improvement groups. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your group. I know you started it and have formed it and developing it, and you're the lead of it at GE Appliances. What do you see as its role as it relates to production or other groups in the company?
Yeah, so our purpose, it's actually on our Hoshin. It's on our lean portal, or we call it the appliance production system here is what we call it. We're not the most creative guys in the world, but that's what we call it. But our purpose is develop people and improve process at the same time. That's really what our purpose is, right? So we always say, how do we make people better? How do you make process and product better? At the same time, doing activities. So that's kind of what our purpose is. If you step back a little bit, we kind of own the roadmap, if you will, like the transformational roadmap, like, all the tools and all the stuff that goes with it. We're the owner of the standards, right? But we're the owner sort of like how you develop people. But everything we have, we just share. Like there's nothing proprietary. Like we'll tell you everything we know because we want you to learn. And that's kind of how our team approaches it. I tell my team all the time, we are 100% a support organization, and we're gonna go help whoever needs help. And that's just how we roll. That's how we operate. When you join my team, you don't have to know really anything about the lean tool set or lean thinking, but you do have to be humble and you have to be a learner. If you have those two characteristics, I'll hire you. We'll basically put you out on the floor and start to teach you the process. And it takes a while.
But you kind of started to speak to the skills. I mean, you mentioned the type of person you're looking for, but what do you see as some of the skills for your team, and what's the best way to build them?
Yeah, so I think I talked about there's some social skills, there's some technical skills, right? On the social side, you got to be somebody who can build trust. You got to be somebody that the team is that will listen. right? Somebody who will like wants to always learn. I think those are important skills. On the technical skills, obviously, like you have to know standardized work and problem solving, some basic shop floor management tools that we teach, and we'll hone those skills for anybody that joins the group. So I think, those are like the basics. There's a lot more that goes into it, but I think it's kind of fun to watch somebody come on the team that doesn't really know a lot. And at first, you just kind of like, okay, we're going to develop this person. And I mean, I have somebody on the team now joined about a little over a year and a half ago, and they're down in one of our plants this week. They've been there like the last 3 weeks, and they're just doing awesome work. They're not only like they're a partner with the frontline team members, right? They've built a good relationship with that frontline team member, so that team member trusts them, but their ability to like solve problems is so much improved. So I think it's kind of fun to watch, and it's sort of rewarding. That's kind of my reward, like watching people get better. So that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of how I think about it.
Thanks, Rich. So I want to ask you a little more targeted question here. So my experience often of seeing continuous improvement groups across different organizations is sometimes they struggle between kind of taking over and owning all the improvements and acting solely on the one hand, or acting solely as kind of these hands-off coaches. What's your perspective on that?
Well, sometimes it depends.
Hmm.
Like, okay. And the reason that why I say that is depend on the situation. Sometimes you have to go in and you have to roll up your sleeves and you have to just go do. Especially like on a product launch or something where it's just like, overwhelming for the plan, right? Like they may have more problems than they can solve. And, you know, that just is normal. But that's not a sustainable model. Like, so you can do that short term, get some nice result, shore things up. At some point, you have to kind of step back a little bit and say, okay, now let's help partner with you to get better. Your ultimate, like if you could always create a partner, that's the best scenario. Now, once you get somebody who's like kind of capable, you can kind of step back a little bit and just be more of a coach. So I don't think one size fits all. I think it really depends. You have to flex your approach based on the situation that you're trying to solve. We had a product launch last year. Product launches are always fun. Not really, but they're full of learning opportunity. How's that? Uh, but when they happen, you just gotta go jump in and say, we got this over here. We're gonna do that. Okay. And that's sort of what you gotta do. But then at some point you jump back and say, like, okay, now you guys gotta start picking this, you gotta start looking at this, and so you gotta kind of just flex.
So if you look back at your journey, the journey of your team, G Appliances overall over the last many years, is there anything, given a chance to reflect, you feel you would do differently than you did looking back on it now?
It's like a great question, right? Can you live your life backwards? You know, do all kinds of stuff different. Right? Um,
Like not become a Browns fan.
yeah, man. Yeah, that's like I'm almost gonna take that down. Uh, I think I don't know. It's hard to say. You can kind of like second guess yourself and say maybe if we would have done this different. But I think it's really like a bunch of just things you learn as you go. Like you have to just be in this learning journey. So could we have had better standardized work early? I think that would have helped us, right? I think, but our situation was difficult because we're just like 100-year-old business that like, was part of GE and had this renowned management system. And like all of a sudden you're telling them like, you got to change your management system. You got to change how your culture. Like that stuff's not easy to just get people to think about. So I think our journey, the way it happened, probably could have been a little bit different, but I still think it would have had the same kind of challenges, right? I think I would have liked to have met some of you guys earlier because I think the approach that I learned with the LEI group, I liked a lot better than like what we were getting from some of the other consultants we were using. So I think some of those things could have been better. Um, but no, I mean, to me, like this is fun. I like it. Um, There's, some days I probably wouldn't tell myself it's fun, but for the most part, it's fun, right? And I like it. I like manufacturing. I like working with people. So to me, I just like this constant learning. It's probably the one thing that I've kind of, some people are like, you've been in that job for a long time. I'm like, well, I haven't figured it out yet. I'm kind of slow, but I'm still learning. And I feel like we've come a long way, but we still got a lot to do. So I don't know. Great question.
Yeah. So Rich, I'm curious, you're describing the fact that you've experienced different approaches in sort of the external support that you've gotten. You've mentioned kind of an LEI approach that you experienced. There's some of the people that like John Shook introduced you to, including Mark and others. And then you had experience with others with other approaches. We don't have to like name names or anything like that, but how would you characterize like what is it? What makes the LEI approach unique, and how does it compare with other approaches that you've experienced?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think the lean transformation framework that you guys put together sort of kind of sums that up, right? This whole notion of you got the people in the process and the management system and the problem you're trying to solve. To me, that like when I saw that the first time, I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. That is really sums it up. Okay. I think a lot of folks have tried to package this lean stuff up into these different little toolkits and deployment models and all this stuff. And it's interesting to me, like they all have a little bit of different take on it. But honestly, I think a lot of those are confusing to people. There's like, it's almost overwhelming. Like there's like all these things you got to like learn. And I think the lean transformation framework, you simplified it. You basically said, you just made it simple, easy to understand, and focused on a problem that needs solved for the business. I think to me, that's really, really good. That's what makes you guys different.
All credit to John Shook, really, who distilled, his decades of learning and observations into that pattern of thinking and acting, which really, really resonated with Mark based on his experience at Toyota. And certainly I myself am just incredibly appreciative for having been given that kind of pattern of thinking and doing myself in my own practice. So Rich, do you have like a elevator pitch that you might use for I guess I'm thinking about two different kinds of people. There's people that we encounter, especially business leaders, whatever, who are just unaware of lean. I mean, maybe they've heard the term, maybe they have some vague notion of it. And so there's like, an elevator pitch for someone like that you might encounter who just doesn't know much about lean, and you'd want to sort of encourage them to learn about it and try it out. That's one kind of person we might encounter. Another might be somebody who has a strong opinion about lean, and it's negative. Maybe they've had some bad experience previously or whatever, and you're in a position to maybe convince them to reconsider it. So I guess I'm asking you for two versions of kind of a succinct elevator pitch, so to speak, that you might give to a leader, one who's simply unaware of lean and one who's kind of negative on it for whatever reason.
Well, to me, this approach works, and it doesn't matter what business or industry or you're in. I could personally tell you I've had opportunity in my career to go outside of the manufacturing space and solve problems, whether it be service parts. We helped our medical group. We've helped legal. We've helped every function within this business, and the approach works every time, and we get results. So I think I don't always go in it with like, here's the lean guy that comes to solve your problem. I just kind of go in it with like, try to help them, right? And we have some basic thinking, so we try to have that come across. So we don't try to be like in their face, like got to do all this lean stuff, learn all these terms, but we do it in a way where they can get better and maybe catch a little bit of it on the way. The folks that are negative, I mean, I would just ask them they have a better way. Like, please do that. Like, that's good. Like, you got a better way, like, go for it. Like, this is the best way I've seen. So, if there's a better way, I'd like to learn that too. tell us what that is. And I just haven't seen it yet. So if they have it, like, please show us.
I like it. So in a sense, I hear sort of a rejection of even the premise. Like don't waste your time with the elevator pitch. Just get in there, be helpful, be useful, demonstrate the approach, and then kind of reflect on it. Like it was lean thinking that guided us to this good result.
Yeah.
We appreciate. I like it. So my final question, is there kind of anything that comes to mind, Rich, that you're currently kind of learning or working to develop personally these days? And maybe a corollary to that, just what is it that you're working on these days that's kind of firing you up? You talked earlier about the opportunity to see younger people kind of get turned on by these ideas, learn these ideas, become capable of these practices. So perhaps it's just along those lines, but I don't know, kind of what's exciting you, energizing you these days.
Well, a couple things. One, I don't want to spend too much time, but we've been embarking on the Jishuken process here. And I think and we've had extremely good success. It's been really, really powerful. So I think it's the next kind of step for us.
Nice.
Taking immersion kind of people that have gone through that program and then actually getting our money back by putting them in a Jishuken, going to the floor, solving a big problem, but more importantly, like trying to develop those leaders' capability so that when they go take on a bigger role, they have this lean thinking in mind. So that's one. We've always got stuff coming. We just announced that we're gonna lean shore. How about that? Lean shore the front load washers that are made in China back into Louisville, Kentucky.
Is that $400 million?
Yeah, it's like a big announcement. It was like a $400 million investment. It was just recently in the media. So that's exciting. It's a lot of work. We're basically gonna, basically create a whole brand new building process, the whole thing. So that's pretty fun. The other thing we started doing is every time we have a class of co-ops now, we do a Kaizen competition. And it's super fun. So what we've done is we've taken co-ops that come in there's like 4 rotations a year or something like that, or 3 or something like that. I think there's like fall, winter, and summer. So there's 3. And we create like 3 or 4 teams and we pick a problem and then we have them go solve it and we coach them along the way. And it's so fun to watch them learn and apply some of this thinking. So, and to me, it's like we're trying to interject that into that generation of folks so this thing keeps going, right?
I love it. You get a bunch of lean people together. There's often conversation about we need to infiltrate K through 12 education. We need to get lean into more education. What I love about that example is I think there's a real practical way that employers like GE Appliances can be kind of bringing that lean education to people, even inside the context of running their business. It doesn't have to be like, let's get 4th grade teachers to teach Kaizen or whatever. I mean, there's just a role that we can play as employers.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. These are folks that kind of want to be in a manufacturing environment. They want to, and not all of them take like direct manufacturing roles. Some of them are logistics. Some of them are in, purchasing. But they get an opportunity to experience what it's like to go to the floor and improve, and it's pretty rewarding for them.
Yeah.
And we get a nice result, and we make it a little bit fun. They have competition. They get to present in our big auditorium, and sometimes the CEO shows up, and it's kind of neat.
It's cool.
No, that was great, Rich. It was great seeing you, great hearing from you, and great, though I'm somewhat familiar with, of course, some of the story, it's awesome to hear it from you and with a person who's probably experienced it more deeply at GE Appliances than anyone.
That's a pleasure. I enjoy talking to you guys. It's been an interesting journey. We've had lots of help along the way, and we continue to try to learn and help anybody else that wants to learn. So,
all right,
we appreciate you guys too.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate your time.